Hi guys, Josh here, welcome to Frames Per Second. Today we're shooting with Morgan! And so we're doing photo shoot with a heap of expired film, so let's get to it. I mean, that's like everybody.
Okay, so I wouldn't normally recommend doing a photo shoot with a model on expired film, but Morgan's actually a photographer and we're going to do a photo hang, which kind of turned into a photo shoot. So that's why I thought I'd experiment with some expired film. And so here we have some really crazy results. So the Sensia turned out really crazy, so I really had to kind of normalize it to get decent skin tones. And while some of you might be like, well, what's the point of shooting expired if you're going to try and normalize it? Well, I was actually testing a batch of film that I got and trying to see if it was alright or not, and obviously it turned out it wasn't. I've shot Sensia before, fresh, and it looks fantastic, like here and here. It's very saturated and warm, and yeah, it goes a bit magenta and crazy when it's expired, and this was definitely the most expired I've seen it. I did aim to get some natural skin tones, and yeah, here we got quite warm, and the shadows went pretty blue, and obviously without me adjusting it, it's just very magenta, and that happens a lot with slide film. It tends to go red, pink, or somewhere in between, maybe even like orangey red, and that's just something I've noticed from a lot of expired slide film I've shot. Yeah, I kind of knew that it was going to get a bit weird, but I didn't think it was going to get this weird. But I do kind of like the kind of edit that I was able to get out of it, which turned out pretty unique. Yeah, I think as long as the skin tones were right, I was kind of happy with the results. It just took a lot of playing with, and I still love Sensia as a film, but out of all the expired films I've shot, it's the one that seems to shift and deteriorate the fastest. And you definitely lose a lot of shadow detail. And here's Morgan. Morgan was great to work with, and she's also a dance teacher, which is why she's dancing a lot. And here we have the Portra 400 VC, which I underexposed most of the roll, unfortunately. I was using a new light meter, which I hadn't had a chance to really figure out, and yeah, I really messed it up. I've got a different light meter now, which I like a lot more. Here we actually got a decently exposed shot, which I was able to get some nice stuff out of. One thing I like about the 400 VC is it does end up turning it quite cooler in color. There's still nice color pops in the reds and the yellows, and yeah, it's quite nice. I think I should have overexposed it an extra stop because I rated it at 200 for this. I should have done it at 100, which I've done since, which turned out a lot better. So this one's underexposed as well. It really was kind of like a experiment with this shoot, and that's kind of all I was trying to do. I was just testing some batches, and now the Cinestill actually was only like 2 months expired, so not really enough to make a difference. And I also got a push to stop, which did kind of mess up the shadows, but it was kind of underexposed and it turned out pretty damn grainy, which is unfortunate, but I still got some decent shots. Unfortunately, I only had 8 shots for the 6x9 camera, so not a lot of shots to play with that camera. And here, the Sensia, I probably got to normalize the most, and that was because it was kind of sunset. I feel like I was able to get things to look more normal, though of course the shadow details are absolutely trash, but I still like the color I was able to get out of it, and especially because it was so messed up. I really wish it was a fresher roll. I didn't know the expiry date, so it was all just about playing around with and testing, and it didn't turn out the best here. This would have been one of the few times I would overexpose expired slide if I had known it was going to turn out like this, just to get more detail in the shadows, even if that meant losing a lot of the highlights. But at the end of the day, I did get some decent shots that are definitely usable out of it. And Morgan was just really fun to work with. I really hope I do get to do something else with her in the future, because she's just, yeah, full of energy, and it's fun collaborating with someone like that. here it does look quite nice the way I was able to normalize it. And then we go to the Cinestill, and here I actually got it metered correctly. Unfortunately, because I did have to be on such a low shutter speed and aperture, some of the shots do have a bit of motion blur, but the exposures are good. This one's actually edited. And here the focus is just off her face, which is kind of how annoyingly shallow 6:9 can be. And I think there's a bit of motion blur on this shot too. Even though it is a leaf shutter, don't go below a 60th really, unless you want some motion blur. And once again, I metered the VC incorrectly, so all these shots are just terrible and underexposed like hell. But you win some, you lose some. I got some good shots out of the other rolls, but just not this one, unfortunately. But in the future, there will be a video where I do have it exposed nicely. If you're doing some non-serious work and just want to experiment, I definitely recommend playing around with expired film. Just know that the results will be very varied and unpredictable. Okay, so lastly, we lost a lot of light at this location, so I don't have a lot of footage. And later on, after the Cinestill, which I'm shooting now, I do end up using my car lights as light. But here we still had enough, and I did a long exposure. So this one's out of focus. It's just a touch. It's more on where her hand is than on her face. And here, obviously, behind the BTS got too dark, so I'm just gonna skip that. Here's me using my car light. This has a bit of motion blur, so I couldn't really use it. This shot's actually in focus and turned out quite well. And this shot is pretty usable as well. And then the last shot was just out of focus, which is very unfortunate because I did kind of want to get that shot. But here is where the Sensia really kind of worked for me, just in a moody way. And even the unedited stuff I do like at this location. And it just looks kind of cool and really moody. And the fact that the car lights are a bit warmer really made things look kind of cool and nice. Unfortunately, the shadows are just grainy as hell, and so I couldn't really save them, but when they're like this, it actually looks kind of smooth, so maybe I shouldn't have edited it. But I did like the way I did edit the film. Like, the grain still kind of adds something nice to it. I just wish it wasn't so blue, and that I was able to isolate her more from the darkness. But I do really like some of these shots with the lollipop, and just the outfit I thought was really cool. Yeah, that's kind of what our little experiment was, playing with all these expired films.
Hope you liked the episode. Let me know your thoughts on the film and the images, and I'm sorry there wasn't much footage towards the end, but feel free to like and subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when there's a new video here. Anyway, I'm Josh, this has been Frames Per Second, together, shoot some film.